Joint Powers Board meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Jamie Goldstein,
Still here.
Carlos Palacios,
Here.
Martin Bernal,
Here.
Jenny Hawayama.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is presentations. Do we have any?
I have no presentations today.
Okay, thank you. Next is additional materials. Either.
I have no additional materials today.
Okay. Next is additions and deletions to the agenda. Do we have any other than I think your comment? All right. We're also at the oral communication. Again, this is the time for the members of the public to comment to the library board on items that are not on the agenda but are the subject matter of the library system. Judy, yes.
Yes, at your last meeting, I think you received estimates of solar installations on all the branches from Altera. And I'm wondering if you're going to proceed with that, move forward with that, schedule that on an upcoming agenda, because that seems like a very wise investment for the library system, environmentally sound, and you get a return on the investment as far as savings of electricity. So I'm wondering if you're going to schedule that on the agenda soon. Thanks.
All right. Next on the agenda is report by library director.
I have no additional materials other than what was submitted in writing.
All right. This is on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda materials. Thank you. Any member of the public would like to comment on the report by the library director? Thank you. Next is a report by Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Library.
We have Vivian with us.
Hi. Morning, everybody. I have trees again for you. And I'm hoping so I'll just give an update as to December. We had a great end of the year at the Friends. We made nearly $40,000 in donations and book sales, one of our best Decembers ever. And 6,000 of that came from the Santa Cruz Gives. So hopefully you saw that in the community all over the place. They were very good about that. We also ordered 2 benches for our libraries. There's going to be a new memorial bench at the Live Oak branch to honor a longtime volunteer who was there. And then a bench for Garfield Park, which they've wanted for quite a while. It'll be under one of the trees because it's really sunny there. So they have a bench already, but it's always in the sun. And so that sheet that I passed around is our Outhouse Friends are doing a program called Our Community Reads. And they chose Trevor Noah's book, Born a Criminal. That's it. Born a Crime. Born a Crime. Yeah. And there's going to be quite a few great events on there. And then if you'll notice, on Tuesday, February 6th, Zach Friend is going to host a trivia night at Seascape Resort. So if you want to go to that, you have to RSVP to that one, but the other ones are open. Come see as you like. And I think that's it for today.
Do you have any questions for everyone? No? Okay. All
I'll
right.
see you in a bit anyway.
Okay. Wow, a lot of activities. That's great. Next, we have a report by Library Advisory Commission.
We did not meet in January. We will meet again in February.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or any members of the public like to comment on the report? Okay, we can move on now to comments by board members.
I think the only comment I would offer is we're working with the Capitola Branch Friends and trying to set up maybe a place for a semi-permanent book sale in the Capitola Mall where they can have a place to sell books during the period of time when the Capitola Branch is closed. And looks like we have a path forward, so looks like a nice opportunity.
Great. Okay, Okay. Next is our consent calendar. Anybody like to pull or comment on any of the items? Consent?
I'll move consent.
I'll second.
Okay, yes. David?
Well, I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more information on item C.
Okay, why don't we?
Sorry.
Go ahead. That's all right.
Why don't
Go
I
ahead and
pull
pull
it,
that. And then I'll just, let me just see if any member of the public would like to comment on any item that's on consent, other than item C, which we pulled. Okay, so there was a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar except for item C. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, we can move on to item C, which is accept sole source vendor purchasing approval. Jamie had a question, it's on page 30 and 31.
So this item was to, following the Santa Cruz City policies and procedures for sole source contract sourcing, authorizing the library to enter into 4, I believe it was. I'm having trouble getting there. There it is. 5 sole source contracts over $100,000. And I guess my question is how much over $100,000? Do we have an estimate of what kind of, that seems like a pretty big door. And my question is just what, can I get a feeling for what level?
Kira Hennepin is our sort of director.
So in a short amount of time where I was pulling up a report, the report is 100 pages or something. So I'll consolidate and send it to you, but I can verbally tell you what they are.
That's
if
fine,
helpful.
yeah.
So last year for Baker and Taylor, we spent roughly $550,000. For Midwest Tapes, we spent roughly $185,000. Recorded Books, we spent roughly $160,000. Gov Connection, we spent roughly $407,000. And Khalifa, we spent roughly $220,000. And I'm happy to send that to you in a report later today when we can consolidate into a more summarized report for you.
Any other questions?
And it's primarily collections and technology that, and there are only a few major vendors of collections. And so this was the practice we had in Minnesota as well.
And so is this primarily on the collection side, procurement of new material, or is it maintaining existing licenses? Is that, just to try to get my head around?
Primarily new material.
Primarily new material.
Okay, so that's-
Khalifa is more about licenses, that's where we get our databases. But the Baker and Taylor Midwest Tape, new material, and recorded books, new material and electronic resources as well.
And we get it at a very significant discount.
Usually not.
It's a big, they're big expenses though.
Yeah, they are, they're big numbers.
What might be helpful is that I don't have a problem with this, but perhaps when they do make the purchase for sole source, if we could just get an FYI or a memorandum so that at least, we're aware, because they are such big dollar amounts. That might be one option if that makes you more comfortable.
Yeah, I think I'm fine moving forward if this has been the process. My one suggestion would be at some point, either as a presentation or something down the road, maybe just kind of a little overview on some of these big contracts that we enter and the relationship we've had and what services they provide, just to help us better understand it. I don't think we need to dig into the weeds too much, but it'd be helpful for me.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that'd like to comment or on this item? Okay. So is there a motion to?
I would move item C from consent.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That passes. Next, on to general business. That took a long time. And we're at item A, which is the annual election of board chair and board vice chair. The proposed rotation is the same as the LFFAA. Is there a motion?
I would move Chair Hariyama and Vice Chair Palacios.
All right, I'll second that. Is there any member of the public that'd like to comment on this item? All right. Given that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Go right back over. All right, moving on to approve mid-year personnel changes. Do you have a staff report?
So, this is part of the annual process of the city. We are allowed to make personnel changes mid-year and July 1st. This is our recommendation for the mid-year personnel changes. The other agreement we've made with the city of Santa Cruz is, because we have so many part-time workers, we do not require board approval of changing people's workload as long as we don't change FTE or position. And so any FTE change or position description needs to come to this board. One of the things that I have been struggling with is since the reorganization of the library staff in 2011, there was a proliferation of job descriptions. So one of my goals is try to simplify the number of job descriptions we use and put more people in the same job title, but use assignments as the mechanism for them to do different types of work. A second thing that we are seeing, and it's been an issue with the union, is a blurring of job responsibilities that forces us to question whether people are working out of class. So in a number of these cases, there have been issues around whether the work that the individuals are actually doing is within their job classification. And I think then the third area we've been looking at is management scope, and we've slowly been working on reducing the management scope of some of the jobs because people were managing such huge numbers of people. But as part of that, particularly in terms of the management analyst position, the individual is managing a significant number of people, and it's not reflected in her job classification. So there's sort of multiple things going on. I need to say at the same time, what we are doing is working with the union, redoing all our major public service job classifications to try and clarify job expectations by title. We are also rewriting our service model because not all our job classifications reflect sort of major changes in the work that we're doing. The thing I have to say is I am struggling with the numbers that have been provided here. We did get them from the city finance department, but we can't match them. So for example, the building maintenance worker, normally when you would switch job classifications, you would be at the same step with potentially a 5% salary increase. And so the direct cost of that is, with the individual in that classification right now, would add about $2,300 annually, plus benefits. But those numbers are wildly different than the numbers we have received. So we may have to wait till March to do this. Jamie, I know you were concerned. In the case of the, the building maintenance worker, not the administrative, not the building maintenance worker. I'm doing this electronically.
Principal analyst?
Yes. Our difference in direct salary that we're calculating is $4,300 annually. So we're seeing really difference.
It's a pretty big difference.
Pretty big difference. The one thing I would like to announce is that Shelley Bodemar, who is our Collections Management Services Division Manager, has announced her retirement on March 9th. We will miss her. She's been a strong leader in this organization. and we wish her well. But we would like to, if possible today, include changing her division manager to a librarian 3, which is actually a reduction in salary. We no longer use the division manager job title in the system, and it would allow us to move forward with that posting.
Does anyone have any other questions on this item? I think because there's questions around the numbers, this item probably should come back, I agree. I did have some kind of weedy questions.
Okay.
So do you know on these numbers if these are just salary only, or was the assumption benefits and PERS?
Benefits and PERS.
Okay, great. And then I see that on the back, it shows a prorated amount, but what would be the total annual cost of all of them collectively, including the reduction and the reclass? So maybe button up those a little bit.
We will do that.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
I guess I do have a couple questions, and then I'll save comments after public comment. So on the maintenance worker 1 to 2, so in Capitola, we staff those flexibly. In other words, we budgeted a position as a maintenance worker 1-2, and so it's kind of one position control for the 2 of them. So is that, I thought Santa Cruz did the same thing, but is that not the case? Or are you not aware? They told you that you needed board authorization to do?
Correct.
Okay.
And they would say this is in particular a case where we have some very skilled people who are doing some amazing work, but the 2 individuals in the 1 and 2 classification are doing the same work.
Okay. I think that's my only question. The rest are comments. So.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this comment? None? Okay, we'll turn it back to board comments.
So I guess overall, the numbers, I'm concerned about the long-term budget, and I'm concerned about doing something here right now that increases by these numbers approximately $40,000 a year in costs. I do think that those are good things to look into. Is what is the real cost? Because $15,000 to go from a 1 to a 2 on a maintenance worker, that sounds high to me. One suggestion maybe in helping present this, when I presented this sort of thing to my city council, is, one of the, under the maintenance worker specifically, calling out the need for less contract work, identify that. That's the savings. And that would help us, I think, make a decision if you could show, hey, look, we in general use $40,000 a year worth of plumbers, and we think that with 2, we could save a quarter of that or something. So that may be a piece that might help. Another thing is, if at the end of the day, I would be far more comfortable with it if it was effectively cost neutral, if there's a way you can come up with a plan to do that. I'm not saying that's an ultimatum, just that would make me the happiest. If you took your administrative assistant 2 for the library assistant 2 and it was 0.625 FTE and went to half an FTE, I don't know what the workload is like, but that is a way to balance it, assuming the position is vacant at this point.
So make revenue neutral.
That's my own personal preference. I'm obviously it's the will of the board, and I'm not saying that.
We have a month to work on that, so I will look at that.
I think that's it.
I understand the tension you're under and trying to manage the organization and pay people appropriately to the work that they're doing. And so I know that's one part of the tension, and then the other part of the tension is that there's always pressure for grade inflation. And we fight that every day of our lives, because every department head is constantly wanting to give people upgrades and raises, and it's just there's this constant pressure for grade inflation across the organizations we manage. And so the problem is that right now we're entering into a period of fiscal difficulty. So we are, because of the costs of PERS in particular going up, we're all facing that. And so we are, for example, in the county, we're starting, I'm not calling it a hiring freeze, we're calling it a hiring review. And so we're actually starting to hold positions vacant I'm reviewing every position as it becomes vacant, and we hadn't done this for 3 years. We had stopped it, and we had done it during the Great Recession, and now we're starting again. And I'm trying to hold positions vacant when everyone comes. Basically, it's not going to get filled unless it's a mission critical job, because all of us are very concerned about the budget. And next year is going to be hard. That's 18, 19, 20, and 2021, at least in all of our projections, look very difficult. And it's just hard to tell. I mean, just even if you assume the economy keeps going as is, all of us are facing deficits, mostly because of employee costs. Some of it is, PERS is just going through a lot of changes, and that's our main issue, I think, for most of us. Now, if you add into that the possibility of a recession, which we're in the, I think, 8th year of this expansion, something like that, and the typical, is it 7 years expansion? So we're 2 years beyond the typical, recession, 5 years, the typical expansion, and then you have a recession. So we're 2 years past that, and I know the governor has just mentioned that again. So if you add the, potential for recession on top of just even if things keep going, we're already facing difficulties. So that's why we're, battening down the hatches, so to speak, right now, all of us in our budgets, and we're being very careful. At the same time, I understand you need to do this, but to the extent, I would say if it can be revenue neutral, that's great, cost neutral rather, and if it can, and then I would just urge caution as you go forward with that mindset that we're going to be potentially in cutback modes in the coming years ahead.
Thank you. So I would love to have a motion on the one position that is moving from a division manager to a lifeline 3, which does have a cost saving.
I'd be happy to move that if that's critical at this stage.
Second.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
We already did that.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you. I will come back in March with more information.
Okay, item C is approve Friends proposal. So do you have a report on that?
Vivian's here.
And the proposal's in the packet, right? Or I have a couple copies. So after our December meeting, I went back and made the proposal a bit more succinct. So the front page clearly states that what we'd be asking for is $50,000 for this year. And it's basically to fund the campaign consultant completely, and then part of the campaign manager as we move forward. And then the second part of the proposal starts with the request proposal for the capital campaign consultant. And you'll see at the bullet points the main projects that they'll be doing. They'll be doing less than what the group has been doing for the capital, their campaign consultant. They're doing quite a bit more than what I would have a consultant do for this group, just because basically the Capitola group doesn't have any staff at all. Then quite a bit of the things that the consultant is doing for Capitola, I moved into the campaign manager, which is is a lower level position, but it is a fundraising position at the mid-level at that point. And they'll be taking a lot of detailed work, getting meetings together and so on. And so you'll notice on their job announcement, they'll be doing major donor work, campaign committee work, the gift acknowledgement and tracking, campaign reporting and coordination, and then working on the communications and public relations planning. I think with the Capitola group, the gift acknowledgement and tracking is done with the city or the community foundation. I'm not sure how that works. So.
Community Foundation,
Okay.
I believe.
Any questions? Additional comments?
So I would just ask your support.
So my question is, I'm supportive of this, but when I first talked about this, the first time I brought it up to the board, I was thinking of a $50,000 total budget, and I'm just concerned that, I heard you mention, you know, for the budget was for this year, and I'm hoping there's not an expectation that this is gonna be funded for 4 years of the campaign, which is then, the cost is really $200,000, which then I think is too much. I've been involved, we did, of course, capital campaigns in Watsonville when we built our building, when I built our 2 libraries at Freedom and the main branch. And then I'm involved with the Community Foundation, the Cabrillo College Foundation as well. And so $200,000 budget on top of the other money seems like a lot of money for this. And so my thought had been that this was $50,000 for the entire campaign. And I just want to clarify, is that correct or not?
Yeah, it is. The $50,000 is to help us start out, and that's all we would require for the JPA.
So that's one-time seed money?
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That helpful?
That's good.
Any other questions at this point from the board? Okay. Any comments from the public on this item at this time? Yes.
I just listened to this American Library Association webinar about community partnerships and fundraising last week. And one of the comments by the facilitators was to get rid of the mindset that there's not enough money. To me, $6 million doesn't sound like it's going to go very far. As we see, you know, costs are going up. So I think you should, you know, aim bigger. And I also want to know if there's some guarantee that the funding would be raised, would be distributed, you know, not just Friends of Capitola raising money for Capitola, Friends of Scotts Valley for Scotts Valley, but the system as a whole. And as I understand it, downtown doesn't have a Friends group, so I'm hoping that downtown would see this fundraising effort as well.
Anyone else who would like to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll take it back to the board for discussion.
So I feel sort of petty, but I'm gonna make the pitch. Because Capitola got kind of out in front of this, our Friends group fronted this money for a professional campaign manager. It was through individual donations, and I think it's estimated to be somewhere in the order of $50,000. As Vivian correctly alluded to, we don't have any professional staff, so it was higher cost. Just sort of in kind of the spirit of equity, I would, if we're gonna do this, I'd pitch it at $55,000 with a $5,000 kind of give back to the Capitola Friends, because they fronted significantly more than that, just to have equity, because our campaign has obviously already done this and already moved forward, but that may seem a little bit petty. And the $5,000 is 1/10 of the.
So the money would go to the Friends of Capitola then, or to
Yeah,
the $5,000?
The $5,000 just to us sort of refunding the individual funding that was used for professional campaign management support that we.
I think Vivian is the other.
That just goes back into our account.
Right, he's saying it would go into their.
Well,
Well, yeah, so the Capitola chapter, their money goes into us except for the money that they, so I guess you're saying give it to the community foundation?
yeah,
Yeah, give it to the community foundation.
yeah.
Community Foundation.
Community Foundation is being a financial fiduciary for the Capitola branch. So all donations made for the Capitola campaign are actually going to the Community Foundation, and they've established a specific special agency fund. It's not exactly the right term, but it's the City of Capitola Library Fund. So the only checks that can be cut from it are to the City of Capitola Library, if that makes sense. So that campaign is fundraising around, and the donations are written to the Community Foundation, City of Capitola Library Fund.
Had they completed their campaign and they've raised everything that they've?
No, so the campaign is still in the quiet phase.
So there's more to be raised,
Oh.
and this campaign would raise for everybody, right, including
Yeah, 10.
Capitola.
Yeah.
Well, presumably, this campaign is going to be kicking off after the city has already committed to building and bidding and awarded its contract for construction. So, I mean, yes, in terms of ongoing programming, But if this is a capital campaign around supporting the construction of branches that are gonna be supported, which is Felton, Aptos, Maine, those sort of three big ones, I guess.
Jamie, I have some discomfort in
Okay.
that. I was fully supportive of the Capitola Friends going out on their own. They have a terrific group of amazing people in that community who are ready to jump into fundraising. And I didn't want to in any way limit their success. And I feel like if we had started creating rules and regulations around it, it would have done so. My difficulty is that ultimately the Capitola is creating a separate entity that is in many ways very separate from the library. Excess money that the capital campaign raises is left with the city. And at least with the Friends group, we have an MOU with the JPA about the relationship. I am an ex officio member on the board. And ultimately, I still view these resources as the library JPA resources. And if anything, my discomfort is around sort of the long-term approach of the Capitola fundraising being such a separate thing from the other activities of the Friends. And I also believe that this campaign is going to raise money system-wide and raise money that will be restricted to individual libraries, including Capitola. It in no way restricts raising money for Capitola. So the hard part for me is once Capitola raises the money, the sort of remaining rules that have been created around that is a thing that's really separate from the library and really focused in the city.
Any other comments? Do you have a motion for this item?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the $50,000 to kind of get it going, and I thank the Friends for willing to do this. It's actually a pretty tremendous endeavor to want to take, and so I would move to approve the Friends proposal.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that, and I'd also like to thank the Friends for this campaign. It's a great benefit to the entire system, I think, and I think it has a lot of potential to actually be very important in the various projects that we're undertaking.
And I will support the motion. I made my pitch. I felt like Capitola got out in front a little bit, and obviously we incurred additional costs. And from my perspective, I think there would be a reasonable sort of allocation back to Capitola. At the same time, I also really support and recognize the effort of the Friends, and do hope that in the long term that there's benefit to the organization as a whole. And I think this is best for the organization as a whole, and I will support.
Same position, and before we vote, just looking forward to you coming back and sharing with us regular updates of how you're progressing and looking forward to those conversations. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 12, scheduled upcoming meetings. Again, we're going to be meeting March 1st at 6 p.m. at Aptos. If no one has any comments on that, we will adjourn to closed session.